You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SEC. Great to have you guys along. On today's show, the great Tom Luginbill going to join us, of course, from ESPN, ESPNU, longtime college recruiting analyst, sideline reporter, analyst in the booth. The guy does it all. He will be on the call for the Oklahoma-Tulane game coming up this weekend, but we will talk all things SEC with Tom and expectations. Also, tons of stuff going around the conference as the SEC has set their protocol and what will happen with a game that is canceled due to COVID. Also, we've got tons of news from all the schools getting ready for week one, Tennessee naming their starting quarterback, and much, much more. Tons to get into, but I'm Chris Gordy. Be sure to follow Locked On SEC for free wherever you get your podcast. You get the latest episode of the show as soon as it comes out each and every day. And a reminder, we're here for you 5 days a week, free on all the podcast platforms, talking about the SEC, but you can also get some other great Locked On shows, whatever your favorite school is from the SEC. We got Locked On Razorbacks, Locked On Bama, Locked On Falls, whatever you like, we got it for you wherever you get your podcasts. All right, let's jump right into it.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Boots out to the right. Takes the handoff. What a catch!
Around the conference.
And we go around the conference. The SEC, they have had several teams reach the 85% vaccination threshold that relaxes some of the COVID-19 restrictions across the conference. But should an outbreak happen during the regular season, well, that team will have to forfeit. On Monday, the SEC released their COVID-19 protocols and said if one team cannot play, it will forfeit the game and be assessed a loss. If both teams can't play, they will both take an L. Now, the school did say, or the conference did say that Greg Sankey has ultimate guidance to basically say if both teams can't play, he could call it a no contest. But it sounds like they're trying to motivate all the schools to mind their P's and Q's, do what they need to do when it comes to COVID, because they don't want to have any games canceled. You got TV contracts, you got stadiums, revenue, tickets, all this stuff that's on the line. And without being too insensitive, the SEC is saying, look, you will take a loss if you can't play the game because you didn't do what you needed to do as far as COVID goes. So we will see what happens. But SEC making it tough on schools, saying, yeah, don't have to cancel a game because of COVID. You will take a loss. In other SEC news, the Tennessee Volunteers, they are starting their season on Thursday night against Bowling Green, first game of the SEC season. And yesterday, first-year head coach Josh Heupel announced that Joe Milton has won the Vol quarterback job. Heupel said Milton was named the starter because his grasp of the offense in a short amount of time, his acceleration of what we're doing, his physical attributes, his decision-making. Joe Milton coming in as a transfer from Michigan. Heupel also said that Hendon Hooker, the transfer from Virginia Tech, and Harrison Bailey could also help the Vols win this year. We'll see who will win that backup job, but it's sounding more and more like Harrison Bailey going to be the backup and Hendon Hooker will be third string. Pretty crazy because just a couple months back, it sounded like Hendon Hooker would be the starter for the Vols this year, but Joe Milton, the Michigan transfer, will be the starter for the Vols. Meanwhile, Go Vols 24/7 is reporting that Tennessee running back T. Hodge has entered his name into the transfer portal. As a freshman, Hodge played one game last year for the Vols against Kentucky, taking a red shirt. He was a three-star prospect, number 25 recruit in the state of Tennessee in 2020. Florida, they have been active in the transfer portal this offseason, adding to their defensive line. On Monday, the Gators added a third defensive lineman via the portal, and it's also the second lineman they've added from Auburn this offseason. From Nick Delatorre at Rivals.com, it says the Gators have landed former Auburn starting defensive lineman Tyrone Truesdale. Florida's online roster had Truesdale still listed on as of Monday. As it turns out, it won't be long until we see him on the field with the new team. The Gators set to host FAU at Ben Hill Griffin Stadium on Saturday. And according to defensive coordinator Todd Grantham talking with the media last night, he says Truesdell will be ready to go. So he will join fellow former Auburn D lineman Daquan Newkirk on the Gators this fall. Truesdell, by the way, played in 10 games for the Tigers last year, recorded 22 tackles. In his 4 years at Auburn, he recorded 67 total tackles. So some good additions there for the Florida Gators. On Monday, Mississippi State, they released their depth chart heading into the start of their season. However, still no decision on the quarterback job. The Bulldogs have their first-string quarterback listed as either sophomore quarterback Will Rogers or senior Chance Lovertich, indicating that head coach Mike Leach still has not officially decided who will start under center against Louisiana Tech on Saturday. Rogers and Lovertich been battling throughout camp. Rogers played 9 games for the Bulldogs last year, threw for almost 2,000 yards and 11 touchdowns. Lovertich transferred in from South Alabama, where he played 6 games last season. And a lot of people said in recent weeks, Lovertich has looked really good. So we'll see who ends up ultimately starting. On Monday, the Auburn Tigers, they released their first official depth chart. And no surprise, Bo Nix listed as the starting quarterback. But some things on the offensive line still unsettled. Left guard and right guard. Auburn's left guard spot says either it'll be Brandon Council or Alec Jackson, and right guard will be either Keandre Jones or Tayshawn Manning. So we'll see who starts for the Tigers on Saturday against Akron. Also on Monday, head coach Brian Harsin asked what would make him happy this Saturday night. He said the number one thing that we have a successful game, that we win the game. Our focus is how do we prepare ourselves to have a good week of practice. I don't want to put any predictions on the game. Over in Kentucky, head coach Mark Stoops said Monday that Wildcats senior offensive tackle Nasir Watkins has been suspended for the first 4 games of the 2021 season. Stoops made the announcement during his weekly press conference, which comes in advance of their season opener against Louisiana Monroe. He did not reveal what led to the suspension, but he did reiterate Watkins is fully healthy. Watkins played in just 1 game last year due to a knee injury, but he saw action in all 13 Kentucky games in 2019 as a reserve at both left tackle and right tackle. Getting Dare Rosenthal in, the transfer from LSU this offseason, should help in his absence. Kentucky also made a key change to their coaching staff this week. Scott Woodward will now serve as their wide receivers coach. He replaces Javon Bouknight, who after 1 season as wide receivers coach will remain on staff as a quality control analyst. Woodward, he and Kentucky offensive coordinator Liam Cohen have a relationship that dates back to their playing days as teammates at the University of Massachusetts, where Woodward backed up Cohen at quarterback. At LSU, Coach O has hired Mario Acitelli as an offensive analyst to work with first-year offensive coordinator Jake Peetz. Acitelli will arrive at Houston from Elon, where he was in his 2nd year as special teams coordinator, working with tackles and tight ends as well. He replaces Kyle Caskey, who left for a job with the Jaguars, but Acitelli's experience includes a pair of stints on Mac Brown's staffs, 3 years as a grad assistant at Texas, and in 2019 at North Carolina as an analyst. He does have familiarity with the LSU staff through new quarterbacks coach DJ Mangus, as they both served several years together on the staff at William & Mary. Lastly, Texas A&M yesterday, safety Damani Richardson talking with the media. He said the Aggies consider this season unfinished business because, quote, we got screwed over a little bit last year. While Richardson did not get specific, the Aggies were number 5 in the college football playoff, final 14 playoff. Lastly, Texas A&M Jimbo Fisher talked yesterday about Haynes King being named his starting quarterback. During camp, King impressed Jimbo, told the media on Monday that he won the job because of his consistency, pocket presence, accuracy, and decision-making skills. Said those aren't the only reasons. He's athletic. There are a lot of guys on our team who can run. He's one of them. I just hope he's fast enough to outrun the guys chasing him. And there you have it. That is around the conference. When we return our conversation with the great Tom Luginbill, and just a quick disclaimer, when we recorded this interview, it was before the game in New Orleans had gotten moved. Oklahoma was supposed to be playing at Tulane on Saturday. That game is now being flipped because of the hurricane that hit New Orleans. They're now going to play that game in Norman, Oklahoma. So disregard the part where we talked to Tom Luginbill about the game being in New Orleans. But either way, everything else in the conversation is still very relevant, especially when it comes to the SEC conversation. That is next. Need to remind you guys about our friends over at SweatBlock. Look, it is doctor created, doctor recommended, works for up to 7 days per use. Here is the deal. You don't want to be sitting at a tailgate or going to the college games throughout this fall and having to change your shirts because your underarms are sweating. It is embarrassing. It's gross. You don't want to be that guy at the tailgate. So go check out our friends at SweatBlock. It is stronger and more effective than most clinical antiperspirants. You simply apply it at night before bedtime. You go to bed. The next morning you wake up, you wash, and you go about your day without worrying about sweat. Guaranteed. No more pitting out. No more picking your shirts based on which one is going to hide your sweat better. They give you the dry shirt guarantee. If SweatBlock doesn't keep you dry, you get your money back. It's featured and tested on the Rachel Ray Show by firefighters. It's been a bestseller on Amazon for the past 10 years, over 13,000 reviews. It's manufactured right here in the U.S. of A. I know it sounds too good to be true, but you will not regret it. Go check out SweatBlock antiperspirant wipes. If you or someone you love is dealing with this, go check them out. You can get them today for 20% off at sweatblock.com. Just use the promo code LOCKEDON, or you can find them at Amazon and CVS. Sweatblock.com. Use the promo code LOCKEDON for 20% off. This episode is brought to you by Rock Auto. With the ever-increasing numbers of makes and models, it's now impossible for your local auto parts chain store to stock all the parts that you need. Why would you endure often pointless or seemingly intimidating questions and wait for the person behind the counter to order the parts on their computer, choosing the brands and prices that they prefer? You can save time and money when you use rockauto.com. You choose the pricing that you want. They are a family business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. Rock Auto prices always reliably low for every customer. They got everything you're going to need: brake parts, tail lamps, motor oil, new carpet, windshield wipers, whatever you need. Go check them out. Go explore their easy-to-use website. Find the solution to your auto parts needs. Go to rockauto.com right now. See all the parts available for your car or truck. Make sure you write Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box so that they know that we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car is ever going to need. It is rockauto.com. Go check them out today. Rolling along here, Locked On SEC, and we are getting ready for the start of the college football season, happening just days away. And joining us now, pleasure to be joined now by longtime college football analyst, recruiting guru, sideline analyst. This guy does it all. Long time covering college football, and I know he's got to be excited for the start of yet another college football season. The great Tom Luginbill joins us now. Tom, welcome in, man. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. How you been?
Doing good. Opening weekend of college football. I saw you're going to be on the sideline for a future SEC team, the Oklahoma Sooners, covering their game down in New Orleans versus Tulane. And Tom, I got to be honest, I was looking at the schedule. That'll be a noon Eastern game on ABC. Looking at the forecast, a chance of showers, but 90 degrees in the middle of the day in New Orleans. I hope you have a fan and sunscreen, my friend.
Well, listen, that's kind of part of the occupational hazard of being a field analyst, that first month of the season. And it always seems to happen to me. And we'll be in either College Station or New Orleans, or we'll be in Clemson, somewhere where it is sweltering. You can't hide from it. You can't beat it. You're just praying for October to get here and let yourself cool down a little bit. But I'll take anything if the rain doesn't come.
Let me ask you, what was your reaction a couple of weeks ago when you heard that Oklahoma and Texas would be joining the SEC?
Well, I think all of this revolves around revenue and money. I mean, it's that simple. And, the ever-evolving landscape of college football continues to shift. But when you look at this through the prism of a television contract and you look at the conference notoriety, if you will, the SEC brought in roughly $720 million prior to the pandemic in fiscal year 2019. The Big 12 brought in $439 million. So, that matches up. You have an opportunity to put yourself in position, if you're Texas and Oklahoma, to be affiliated with something that everybody else is chasing. And I've been joking the last couple of days that essentially this quote unquote alliance between ACC and Big Ten and the Pac-12 is just something to stack up against the SECAA, and that's the Southeastern Conference Athletic Association. Because right now they're running college football.
Yeah, it's quite crazy. I mean, I think we were at SEC Media Days that week when the news came out, and I think we're still kind of in shock and trying to accept what it's going to be. Another big thing that happened this offseason, you've been covering recruiting for so many years, the NIL deals, they become official this summer. What's been your reaction so far with the NIL, and what effect do you think it's having and will have on recruiting?
Well, here's the issue with all of this, and trust me, I've dissected it 7 ways from Sunday, and it's one of the issues that I've had is that we have put forth the most transformative legislation in probably the last 40 years of college football, and we did so dumping it on the laps of the universities and the states without any blueprint, any way of knowing how you're going to execute this. Are you going to police it? Are you not going to police it? If so, what are the guidelines? What do we have to adhere to? Some states have different rules versus other states, so nobody's playing with the same deck of cards. And the reality is we've done all of this, and we haven't done any of the prep to put ourselves in a position to best deal with it. And I look at that both from a university and a coaching staff perspective, as well as from a player's perspective. You look at the universities and the coaching staff. Okay, well, what are you allowed to do and what are we not allowed to do? Did you guys know that under the NCAA rules, this is crazy to me, all right? There are NCAA rules littered throughout college football, as we all know. Right now, it's the wild, wild west in the NIL. But if a coach wants to go on social media and congratulate one of his players for securing an NIL deal, that's an NCAA violation. I mean, this is insanity, right?
Wow.
So, and from a player perspective, I think it's really important that we've got to acknowledge and hopefully start doing something about this. But we've got to start preparing these student athletes, male, female, regardless of sport, for how to handle, if they're one of the fortunate small percentage that is going to be taking place in this, how do you handle this? How do you handle representation, signing contracts, understanding morality clauses, understanding taxes? All right, all of these different things, protecting your investments, protecting your income. We've done all of this without any tools. And so those are concerning to me. And I think obviously there will be unforeseen consequences, unintended ramifications that haven't manifested themselves. I'm super happy for the prospects this affects. But I just wish we had a little more clarity before we jumped in the deep end.
I saw you tweeted out the other day, and we saw at BYU, a company step forward and decide to step up and pay for some walk-ons. And on the surface, you go, man, that is awesome. That is great. But I know you said, man, this could lead to a lot of pitfalls here.
I think so. I mean, listen, if you're a Nick Saban, you're a Dabo Sweeney, you're a Ryan Day, you're an Ed Orgeron, whatever it is, you're looking at that and you're going, well, wait a minute, hold on. I've got an 85-man scholarship limit. Then I got another 20 on top of that, capped at 105. Those are supposed to be my walk-ons. But what if I could go get local proprietors and businesses and endorsers to pool all their money together and put all of our walk-ons on scholarship, only they aren't walk-ons. They're top-level Power 5 prospects, and now they all start trying to keep good players away from each other. And now the disintegration of the walk-on program could take place, because you now have money to pay a player's wage that doesn't count against your 85. So again, all of these different things that people probably should have thought out are things that as each and every deal gets endorsed, each and everything that starts to happen, you start to say, okay, well, what could be the slippery slope here? What could be the downside that nobody anticipated?
It really is. I mean, there's so many different layers to this thing, and it could, there's still so many things that are going to fall out from all the NIL and everything else, and it's just going to be interesting to see. Is the NCAA even the governing body that
right.
comes down on teams and schools after all this stuff? Football season is upon us. It is that time of year, and folks, BetOnline is your number one spot for all the college football action this season. You get updated odds, props, and contests, including all the great contests that they got going. They got the online's biggest $500,000 NFL mega contest, the world's largest $200,000 NFL survivor contest, open now over at BetOnline. Of course, when you head to their website, do so on your mobile device, sign up today, and you'll receive a 100% welcome bonus. Use our promo code LOCKEDON. That's LOCKEDON. Tons of stuff to take advantage of, tons of games. All the games across the SEC this Saturday are right there for you right now on BetOnline. You want to bet on an upset special? You feel like some team can win straight up? You feel like you just want to bet on some team minus the points, plus the points, an upset, whatever it is, from football, basketball, boxing, right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait. Take advantage of all the great offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way for you to bet on all your favorite sports. And make sure you use that promo code LOCKEDON when you sign up for the first time. BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts. Continuing our conversation with the great Tom Luginbill. Tom, with the start of the college football season, I did want to get your thoughts on the SEC this season. It seems like Alabama and Georgia are the two favorites, but what do you make of the SEC as a whole this year?
Well, I think the SEC is a reflection of what I deem to be the biggest off-season storyline that we've seen in college football in recent memory, and that is the replacement of highly productive quarterbacks at blue blood programs on Alabama, a Texas A&M, a Florida, a Clemson, an Ohio State, a Texas. I mean, the list, Notre Dame, the list goes on and on and on. And the question for me is, okay, what is Emory Jones going to do? How is he going to perform for Dan Mullen in Florida? How will Bryce Young, with 23 pass attempts, a lot of missing components, a revitalized offensive line, a new play caller, how will he be? Will he be as advertised? I know at Texas A&M, Jimbo Fisher puts an awful lot on the shoulders of the quarterback, and now you got a redshirt freshman in Haynes King that was named the starter today. What's he capable of handling? And so, to me, what makes all this interesting, Ohio State's another one. They had, C.J. Stroud's going to be the starter, but the four players that had competed to be the guy had never attempted a college pass before. So that's what makes the intrigue of the conference really fun, in my opinion. You've got Kentucky coming off of a good year last year. A lot of people are feeling like they're going to be a good team. Well, they got a brand new quarterback in Will Levis. So for me, the quarterback that hits the ground running is going to give their team a real leg up. And, I look at Alabama and I say, well, all right, it's Alabama. We trust in it. We've seen it before. We haven't seen a dip. We haven't seen them go in the tank off of a few losses off of their roster. But look at their road games. You're at Florida, at Texas A&M, at Auburn. Those are three of the most difficult places to play in all of college football, and you have a redshirt freshman quarterback. So let's see how that plays out. So that's what makes the whole thing intriguing for me. And then you look at Georgia in the East, and I don't think JT Daniels is a difference maker. I don't think he's a physical specimen. But what I do think is he gives them competency. He can make the throws. He can get the ball to where it needs to be. I think he's a stronger arm, Matt Barkley, Jake Fromm type guy. And if they can avoid the injury bug, which they haven't been able to do to this point, I think Georgia's, really in the mix here for a national championship opportunity.
You mentioned Alabama and their schedule, and I think in the month of October, they get back-to-back. They get Ole Miss at home. We know they got into a little bit of a shootout with them last year in year one of Lane Kiffin. And then the week after that, they got to go on the road to Texas A&M, and I know Jimbo Fisher and them are licking their chops at that one. Is this the year a Saban assistant breaks through and beats him? Because, man, I think it's 23-0 now. It's getting a little bit ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, potentially. It's interesting. I think that all depends on whether or not the quarterback, Alabama's quarterback, pans out in the way that we've seen their last three in a row pan out. And because, Ole Miss, I think Ole Miss, we can have a discussion about Spencer Rattler. I think Matt Corral is in the top two quarterbacks in the country. I think when it's all said and done, barring injury, he'll be the guy that everybody will be talking about the most going into next year's pre-draft discussion. So you're going to be able to score points. So if you're Alabama and you look at that schedule as you outlined, I think Alabama's going to have the best defense they've had in the last 2 to 3 years. But they better be prepared to score some points. And you know what? The reality is, statistically, are we going to probably see a bit of a downturn? Yeah, I think we will, at least early on in the season until they get their feet wet. Will that defense's improvement be kind of be the neutralizer there where it doesn't hurt Alabama to maybe be off from a 7, 8 to 9 points per game type of situation.
Josh Heupel at Tennessee, Brian Harsin at Auburn, Clark Lee at Vandy, and Shane Beamer at South Carolina. Of the 4 new coaches in the SEC, which one intrigues you the most?
Oh, boy, that's a great question. I think that probably Brian Harsin, in the sense that, number one, he's taking over a job with the best core nucleus to succeed right away. But what intrigues me about it is this was a bit of an out of left field hire, not because he's not qualified, not because he's not a damn good football coach, which he is, but this is an entirely different animal than where he's been before, particularly on the recruiting front, and the passion of football in the southeast portion of our country is unlike anything anywhere else in our country. And so how will he match up with the expectations and the pressure and the having to deal with the in-state recruitment against, an Alabama, and then the likes of a Georgia and some other teams coming out of Florida, and you're having to battle all of these programs just to survive, let alone beat Alabama. Whereas when you were at Boise State, you had your pick of the litter on the West Coast of that tweener Power 5, Group of 5 guy that was going to be a great player, and they wanted to go to your place. So let's see how this thing plays out over the next couple of years. I think we all know this about Auburn. It's a great job, but you've got to know you're going to be hired to be fired sooner or later.
It's a great way to put it. Talking with the great Tom Luginbill. Last thing for you, Tom. I know you'll be in New Orleans this weekend for Tulane versus Oklahoma. It had to be tough last year doing those games, man. Some stadiums half empty, some stadiums completely empty. But how much are you looking forward to being back around the crowds and the atmosphere that really makes college football so special?
Yeah, just to be on site. Last year, most of us, myself included, were pulled off the road. We were broadcasting games from little, 10 by 15 studio. I call them broom closets. And, you have no atmosphere, you have no noise, you have no energy, you've got limited camera angles. So just to be there in person, to your point, the sights, the sounds, the smells, the energy, the atmosphere, student involvement, tailgating, being able to capture all of that again and then be in the thick of it we all just can't wait. We're just so ready for this to happen.
How did that work? I mean, the sideline reporter, your job's to go, investigate injuries, talk to the coaches, all that. You're not on the field. How does that work when they throw it to you?
Well, generally, for last fall, I just went up and was a booth analyst. And so I've done both throughout my tenure. I've done a lot of midweek MAC games and some other games, the FCS playoff games where I haven't been on the field. I've actually been in the booth. And then, generally when I'm on the field as a field analyst, yes, I handle the interviews at the end of half and at the end of the game, but really I'm down there from an analysis perspective. If we're doing our job right and you're listening or watching one of our games, we should sound like a 3-man booth. I have an open mic and really just give an analysis from a different perspective on the field. And so to go back up into the booth was fine. I enjoy that as well. But to do it with some of our limitations, I'll say this. Every one of us that had to do it became a better broadcaster, whether we realized it or not, because there are inherent challenges in that are difficult to overcome. So now to get back and have some of those resources back to our disposal, get on the field, be at the stadium, be in person with these coaches when you're visiting with them as opposed to Zoom, it's going to make all the difference in the world.
Yeah, and we talked with Tom Hart at SEC Media Days, and he said, there was no comparison. He hated it. He hated sitting in his house calling games, and he's ready to get back on the road. You will be with some pros coming up with the Oklahoma-Tulane game, Dave Pasch and Dusty Dvorak and yourself. Looking forward to that one. Big ABC noon game. Going to be a lot of fun to watch that one. Tom, appreciate the time, man. Thanks so much. You do an awesome job, and we'll have to do this again soon.
You bet. Thanks for having me, man.
Thanks so much. That's the great Tom Luginbill of ESPN, and we'll be on ABC this coming Saturday for Oklahoma-Tulane. Looking forward to watching that one outside of the SEC footprint. That is just about going to do it for this edition of Locked On SEC. Appreciate you guys for listening, and we'll be back tomorrow getting you set for all the games and action happening this weekend throughout the SEC. And appreciate Tom Luginbill for sharing his thoughts on the SEC. I am Chris Gordy. A quick reminder, check out the Locked On Bets podcast presented by BetOnline.ag. They will be giving you all the picks you need and all the intel you need for this coming weekend slate of games. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow right here on Locked On SEC. Have a great day, everybody.